There is an island out in the Atlantic with a problem most of us have never had to think about. The sun is relentless. The heat is tropical, day after day, with almost no shade to hide in. And on this island, there is not a single forest. Not one. No wood to build with, and barely any electricity to spare for something as thirsty as an air conditioner. By every rule we live by, the homes here should be miserable. Ovens of concrete baking in the sun, or flimsy shacks that trap the heat. But they are not. Step through the door of one of the old houses, out of the glare, and the air changes. It is cool, genuinely cool. No fan turning, no vent breathing, not a single watt of power being spent anywhere in the building. So how do you cool a house under a tropical sun with no wood, no electricity, and no air conditioning? The answer is hiding in the walls. And it is so simple and so old that the modern world is only now starting to remember it. Think about the last time your home was too hot. You reached for something that runs on power, a switch, a fan, a unit humming in the window. Now take all of that away. Take away the electricity. Take away the wood you would build with. Take away the trees themselves, every last one, and leave yourself standing under that sun. That is the exact problem the people of Cape Verde were handed, and they solved it with nothing but the rock beneath their feet. This is Cape Verde, 10 islands off the coast of West Africa, a place that has spent its whole history being handed impossible problems and quietly solving them anyway. The easy answer is the one you are already thinking. Just build with wood and put in an air conditioner. And on almost any other island on Earth, that is exactly what you would do. But here, neither one was ever really an option. Start with the wood, because this is the part that surprises people. Cape Verde has almost no trees. Not a shortage. Almost none. By recent counts, the islands have essentially zero natural forest left. A number so small it rounds to nothing. There is no timber to cut, no lumber yard on the mountain, no forest to fell. Every plank of wood on these islands had to cross an ocean to get there, which makes it slow and scarce and expensive. You cannot frame a village out of wood you do not have. And the electricity is not much easier. On these islands, power is limited and costs among the most you will find anywhere, much of it made by burning fuel shipped in across the sea. Running an air conditioner around the clock, in every home, to fight a sun that never lets up, was never realistic. The heat was going to win that fight. And even if the power had been cheap and endless, an air conditioner is a strange kind of answer. It does not make heat disappear. It just moves it, pumping warmth out of one room and dumping it outside, burning energy the whole time it runs. It is a fight you have to keep paying for, every hour, forever. The old builders were after something smarter than a fight. They wanted a house that simply never got hot in the first place. So they were left with a strange challenge. No wood to build with, no power to cool with, and a sun that bakes everything from dawn to dusk. They had to build a house that could keep itself cool, using only what the island would give them for free. If people outthinking an impossible land is the kind of thing you are here for, subscribe. There is a lot more of it coming. And what the island gives them, more than anything else, is rock. Black volcanic rock, everywhere, in endless supply. The same volcanoes that shaped these islands paved them, over and over, in dark basalt stone. Where there are no trees, there is more rock than anyone could ever use. So that is what they built with. Not because it was elegant, but because it was the only thing there was. And there is a dark poetry in that. The volcano is the thing that threatens these islands. The same fire that buried a whole village in lava within living memory. But it is also the thing that armors them. Every eruption, every ancient flow, laid down more of the dense black stone that would one day become somebody's walls. The mountain that can destroy a home is also the quarry that builds it. On these islands, the rock is both the danger and the shelter, and the only thing that decides which is what you do with it. The traditional house here is called a funco, a round hut with walls of stacked black volcanic stone and a conical roof of straw or dried sugarcane. And the walls are the whole secret. They are not thin, they are thick, often around 40 centimeters of solid stone, far heavier and deeper than any wall you would build today. To an outsider, that looks like a mistake. Black rock, in the tropical sun, piled thick. It sounds like a recipe for an oven. It is the exact opposite. And to understand why, you have to understand one quiet piece of physics that these builders worked out by feel, long before anyone gave it a name. Here is the trick. A thick wall of heavy stone does not heat up quickly. It resists. Through the long, blazing day, the sun beats down on that black rock, and the wall slowly soaks the heat in. But it takes hours to work its way through. So while the day is at its hottest outside, the inside of the house is still cool, because the heat simply has not made it through the stone yet. The wall is buying you time, hour after hour, and then the day ends. The sun drops, the air outside cools, and the desert night sets in. That is when the wall does the second half of its job. All that heat it soaked up during the day now slowly leaks back out. Some of it inward, into the house, keeping the rooms warm just as the night turns cold. By the time the wall has finally given up all its heat, the sun is coming back up to load it again. That is the whole machine. The thick stone wall is a battery, not for electricity, but for temperature. It charges up with heat during the day and discharges it at night, smoothing out the wild swings between the burning afternoon and the cold dark. Inside, it never gets as hot as the peak of the day or as cold as the depth of the night. It stays, more or less, comfortable. And it does all of this with no power, no wiring, no moving parts, and no bill. Builders call it thermal mass. The people of Cape Verde just called it a house. You can feel it if you spend a full day inside one. In the morning, the stone is still cool from the night, and the house is the most comfortable place for miles around. As the afternoon sun hammers the outside, the walls hold the line. While the street shimmers with heat, the rooms stay shaded and calm. Only late in the evening does a little of the day's warmth finally work its way through the stone, right when you want it, as the desert night turns sharp and cold. The house is always about half a day behind the weather, and that lag is exactly what keeps the people inside it comfortable. The rest of the design finishes the job. The windows are kept small, just enough for light and air, so the sun cannot pour straight in and undo the wall's work. The thatched roof of straw or cane sits light and airy on top, insulating against the sun overhead. And many roofs are built flat for a second reason entirely, so that when the rare rain does come, it can be caught and funneled down into a cistern, because on an island this dry, you do not waste a single drop. The house keeps you cool and gathers your water at the same time. But the deeper question is why they ever had to build this way. Why an island should have no wood at all. And the answer is a slow tragedy that reshaped the whole country. The islands were not always bare. When the first Portuguese ships arrived, centuries ago, they found no people, but they did find green. Vegetation, ground cover, life clinging to the volcanic slopes. And then it was stripped away. Land was cleared for farming and for sugar. Herds of goats were let loose and ate the young growth faster than it could return. The roots that had held the thin soil together died, and the soil itself washed away in the rains, leaving bare rock behind. Piece by piece, over generations, the islands were scraped down to the stone. It is a bitter irony. The trees might have held the rain, shaded the soil, and softened the whole climate. And losing them made a hard land even harder. But it also, in a strange way, set the shape of every home that came after. A country with forests builds in wood. A country stripped of them, sitting on an endless supply of volcanic rock, builds in stone. The bare mountains did not just take the wood away. They decided, for centuries to come, what a Cape Verdean house would be made of. And the timing could not have been crueler, because this is also a land of drought. The rains here have failed again and again on cruel repeating cycles for as long as anyone has kept records. Some of those droughts turned into famines that killed tens of thousands. In the worst of them, in the 1940s, drought and war and neglect together killed something like a quarter of everyone on the islands. This was never a gentle place. It was a place that could starve you and offered you no forest to build a shelter from. The droughts came on a grim, almost regular beat, striking again and again over the centuries, each one a gamble with survival. Earlier famines had already killed well over 100,000 people across the islands. And every time the rain failed and the crops died, more people gave up and left, climbing onto ships bound for anywhere with water and work, until a huge share of the entire nation lived scattered overseas. The land that took their forests and their harvests also took their people. What it left behind was rock, sun, and a stubborn few who refused to stop making a home out of both. So the stone was not a style choice. It was the only answer left. A land that gave them almost nothing, gave them one thing without limit. The black rock the volcano keeps making. And they learned to turn that rock into everything. Their walls, their shade, their cool, their shelter from a sun that would not quit. That choice came at a price, and it is worth being honest about it. Stone is brutal to build with. Every one of those blocks has to be cut, hauled, and lifted by hand, and a wall 40 centimeters thick swallows an enormous amount of rock and labor. Building a stone house was slow, heavy, generational work. The kind of thing a family did over years, not weekends. It is far easier to throw up a quick box of concrete blocks, and today, many people do exactly that. But the old builders were buying something the quick houses do not have. A thick stone wall lasts 100 years or more. It shrugs off the wind and the sun that would wear a lighter house down. It costs nothing to run, forever. And it keeps you comfortable on its own, with no power at all. The modern concrete block houses going up across the islands are faster and cheaper to build, and many of them heat up like ovens the moment the sun hits, and then need the very air conditioning the old stone houses never did. The slow way turned out to be the smart way. If a wall that cools a house with no power is the kind of clever you came here for, do me a favor and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. And that is really what this whole story is about. It was never just about houses. It is about what people do when the easy answers are all taken off the table. They were handed a sun that never rested, an island with no forest, and almost no power to fight either. Anyone can stay cool with a working air conditioner. It takes something else entirely to stay cool with nothing but rock and knowledge on a bare island in the middle of the ocean. They did not defeat the heat. They outthought it. They took the one material a punishing land gave them for free, and they turned it into shelter that beats the sun on its own terms. There is a kind of genius in that which is easy to miss, because it does not look like genius. It looks like a plain stone hut, but every thick wall is a solved problem. Generations of quiet trial and error, of noticing which houses stayed cool and which turned into ovens, passed down until the knowledge was simply baked into the way everyone built. Nobody wrote it in a manual. It lived in the hands of the builders, and in the comfort of the families who slept soundly through the hottest nights while the rock did its silent work. And here is the part worth stealing, even if you never set foot on these islands. That thick-walled, heavy stone way of building is not a quaint relic. It is one of the oldest and best tricks people ever found for staying comfortable without burning energy. The same principle behind adobe homes in the desert and old stone farmhouses across the world. For a century, we forgot it because cheap power let us brute force our way past the weather. Now, as the world gets hotter and everyone looks for ways to cool a home without a power bill, that forgotten idea is quietly coming back. The people of Cape Verde never let it go. They could not afford to. So here is the simple version, the part you can actually use. If you want a building to stay cool without pouring power into it, make it heavy and make it thick, and let the mass do the work, soaking up the day's heat and giving it back at night. That is the whole secret. No technology, no wiring, nothing to break. Cape Verde did not invent that idea, but on an island with no wood and no power, they were forced to master it, and they have been living proof for generations that it works. Which leaves one last question hanging over all of it. They found a way to shelter themselves from the sun with nothing but stone. They found a way to pull their water out of the fog and the sea. But a wall feeds no one. So on an island with no forests, no rivers, and soil scraped down to bare rock, how on earth do these people manage to grow anything to eat? Subscribe, and that is exactly where we are going next.